Hello, good evening. It's 10 p.m. and this is News at 10. Our last bulletin for the day. We're live on 3FM 92.7 as well as TV3. My name is Stephen Anti. Around the world, we're streaming on the internet at 3news.com and we're also streaming live on our Facebook page. Let's begin with the day's major news highlights. The Commission of Inquiry on the creation of new regions will from Tuesday, November 21, begin a public sitting. Representatives from the 4 regions seeking to be reorganized are to come and defend their petitions and explain why they should be accepted. Meanwhile, the Commission has started reviewing petitions from the Western, Volta, Buno-Ahafo and Northern regions. And government has begun the process for the creation of 38 new districts and municipalities. The Minister for Local Governance and Rural Development, Hajia Halima Mahama, says the creation of these districts and municipalities will not necessitate the creation of constituencies. And Energy Minister Boachi Ejakun says it is government's intention to switch all power generation from liquid fuels to gas. He explained gas will be critical in Ghana's quest to expand industrialization of the economy. And government has justified its decision to go silent on the price of petroleum products in the 2018 budget statement. Energy Minister Boachi Ejakun explains the decision is key to ensuring that consumers of petroleum products are not shortchanged. Right, those were our major news highlights. Remember, you can hear us also live on 3FM 92.7. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, the Minister of Regional Reorganization and Development, Dan Kweku Boche, says the ministry is unable to tell how much the creation of the new regions will cost the taxpayer. Responding to questions from journalists, he says there are too many departments doing several works and it will be premature to state an estimated budget.
It is being done by various state institutions. They submit their budget as and when they are assigned a responsibility to do. For example, in the course of this work, we felt that an institution like the National Commission for Safety Education should be abreast of what is going on. They should understand their processes and they should be able to explain to the people, because many people did not even know that the Constitution actually addresses this matter. And all sorts of people had all sorts of interpretations, surprisingly, even very learned people. So we felt that no, people should be educated about this. So we have met the commission. In fact, they had a seminar somewhere in Kwewu where all the regional directors and staff were there, and we went and had interaction with them. And we are starting to try to engage them to undertake public education exercise. That, for example, I cannot tell you how much it will cost. They will have to do that. The next one is the commission's work. I mean, as they move to the regions, if you are talking about fuel and accommodation, those logistics. Right. Then the next major one is the work of the Electoral Commission. As they conduct the referendum, how much it will cost to conduct the referendum. Exactly. So these are things that will come from those state institutions.
Right, so let me take you through some of the statistics involved in the cost analysis of what's involved in the creation of these new regions. So as you can see here, the Office of Government Machinery has a total budget of 1.337 billion cedis. This is for the Ministry of Regional Reorganization and Development. Bear in mind that is under the Office of Government Machinery. So whatever expenses that will come to that ministry would have to come from this figure. And let's look at in 2018 in the budget, government has earmarked an estimated 315 million Ghana cedis to the Electoral Commission for referendum. And bear in mind also that there are a number of referendums that referenda that might take place before the creation of these regions are approved. Now, the budget has also catered for 10 staff of the ministry with an estimated budget of 350,000 Ghana cedis. Right now, we still don't know how much it's going to cost. Like the minister said, there are too many departments and agencies which are doing various forms of works in relation to this, that it will be premature to give an estimated budget or figure. So let's move on now. Still on this local government issue, the Dean of the Local Government Institute, Dr. Eric Odro-Osai, is questioning the inability of the Ministry of Regional Integration, Regional Reorganization and Development to state clearly how much the creation of new regions will cost the taxpayer. He says the government must state in clear terms the cost of the creation and establishment of these new regions.
Shouldn't that be worrying to the Ghanaian?
I think that should be worrying. I mean, we should be worried about that. And I think government on its own should just be up and doing. Government should step up its efforts at ensuring that they do full disclosure on the total cost. How much is it going to cost us as a nation to create new regions? And I will not even expect us to know only the cost of creation, but we should even know the cost of properly establishing them, because creation is not enough. After creating them, they need logistics. How much is it going to cost us? So we should know the ballpark figure, and then know the sources. Where are we going to get the money to fund them? Once we know them, I'm sure it will even be a shopping list for government to go out there to look for money to support the various phases. And it will also help the auditors and other people who scrutinize the financial statement of government to check whether it is cost effective or not. Whichever way we look at it, you cannot have a plan without a budget. So I'm encouraging government to come out with the ballpark figure on how much we are going to spend to create the regions, and then help them be on their feet to rub shoulders with the existing regions.
They have also not told us the source of the funding, like you've said, but largely they're going to be dependent on the office of the president, where they are drawing their money from and all that. Some 350 made for the staff of the ministry, but beyond that, the budget did not state it. For instance, if government decides to go to donors to get money for the creation of the regions, what does it tell about us?
Now, if government goes to donors to support the creation of regions, my understanding is that it's a way of the development partners supporting good governance. But you look at it, look at the other side of it, is that it will also tell you that you are a country that is not able to meet its own needs. Because Kwame Nkrumah told us that we should take charge of our own destiny, and the African is able to manage his own affairs. So if we are to go by that, then we should try as much as possible to raise the money from within. That's the more reason why we need a budget now, so we'll be able to plan well and then mobilize it. And let me also say that the development partners can disappoint. If we rely so much on the development partners to finance even the creation or resourcing the newly created district, and they end up not bringing the resources, at the end of the day, we end up not achieving our national objective. So I would advocate for the need for a total comprehensive budget, but also indicate the sources, and I would expect the majority of the sources should come from within.
Right, so let's get onto the telephone lines and speak with the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, James Kluche Aveji, joining us on the telephone. Good evening, Honourable. We're grateful that you could join us. So the discussion we've been having, will you say that it is enough for the minister to say, for example, that they cannot state in quantum terms how much the exercise of creating new regions is going to cost?
Thank you very much. First of all, good evening to your listeners and viewers. Stephen, I don't think that it is right for the minister to say that. In a sense that the President of the Republic had a vision, and that vision is to create new regions out of existing regions. And so you need to quantify that vision, because you are going to create regions and establish them. How much is going to cost you? in the first place to create the region, because you need to follow some constitutional requirements. That is why you mentioned that 315 million Ghana cedis has been allocated or budgeted for under Office of the President or Special Initiative for the Electoral Commission to conduct a referendum in those regions that that are going to be split into other regions. So that should not be sufficient, because you are going to create these regions. They need logistics, they need infrastructure, they need the staff, they need a lot of things so that they can take up as a region. This is a bureaucracy that you are going to create. Right. They need human beings or human resources to work in those regions.
And you must know how much. And you must know how much they're going to cost.
If you look at the 2018 budget, 350,000 has been allocated for the main Ministry of Regional Reorganization and Development for salaries. Then when you go further, you see that under goods and services or administrative expenses, 2.5 million has been allocated. Then another 1 million allocated for capital expenditure. So then the ministry itself has been allocated a total of 3.8 million Ghana cedis, in addition to 350 million Ghana cedis for referendum. Then you need to find out about that. So it is not sufficient for the minister to say, I don't know the cost or I cannot cost it. Then what I do is, then after you have created these regions, if you cost it and then the cost is becoming unbearable on government budget, what happens? Become a burden for government.
So Honorable, like you said, there was no explicit mention of it in the budget as well. So I want to find out from you, as the minority in Parliament, will you be demanding some answers about this?
Definitely, we will want to find out from the minister when the sector budget or the estimate is being debated on the floor, when the report from the Committee of Finance comes to the floor. We want to find out why there's no cost for the new regions that are going to be created. Maybe they are not sure that the referendum will result into a successful creation of those regions, so they don't want to speculate. Or maybe the plan is that for the year 2018, they'll be going through all the constitutional requirements. So by the end of the year before, those regions will be created. So the region will actually not take off in 2018. If that is the explanation, then we can agree or we can accept that, yeah, that is why no budget has been made for it. But even with the concession of the idea that I want region, if you have a fair idea of if I create the region, how much is going to cost as a burden on the public purse.
But come to think of it, Honorable, and to be a bit fair on Dan Boche, he says that there are too many departments doing several works and it will be premature to state an estimated budget. Is that not a realistic explanation?
No, it is not. As a minister in charge of regional reorganization and development, it is your duty to coordinate the activities of all those other ministries. That if Ministry A is doing other activities, how much is the cost of that activity towards the creation of the new regions? Ministry B is doing another activity, how much is the cost? So as the coordinating ministry, you should be able to have a fair idea of how much each ministry is contributing in terms of cost. Then I can just pull out all these numbers, put them together and say, oh, if this year is going to cost the activities that are going to create a region so much on government. So it is not sufficient for him to do the other ministries are doing. What is his work? What is he doing?
But do you suspect that he possibly knows, but is not willing to go public with such an estimate?
I don't think that he knows. He doesn't know. I don't think that he knows. Right.
Honorable Aveji, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Honorable Kluchi Aveji is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. This is News at 10. You're hearing us live on 3FM 92.7 as well as TV3, and we're streaming on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. We have more news for you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, the head of the Kumasi Institute of Technology and Environment is questioning the prudence and the sustainability of the electricity tariff reduction announced by the finance minister in Wednesday's budget presentation. Ishmael Ejekumhene found it curious that a government that recently launched a bond to clear legacy debt in the energy sector will be giving electricity tariff freebies. He spoke earlier to TV3.
Now, this is subject to approval by the PURC. Do you foresee them agreeing to this without any hesitation?
I think we need to explain this very well. Otherwise, the government itself will create problems. Government has only recommended reductions. In fact, PURC is rather, if you say approval by PURC, it turns the process around upside down a bit. PURC is the only mandated entity in this country that can set tariffs. So I think the Minister of Finance was quite careful in the way he presented this to Parliament. The government has only made a proposal, it's subject to PURC's consent, and PURC will have to also show or look at the methodology or the calculation that is done by the government to be certain that they can reduce it by that magnitude. So I would say let's wait to hear what PURC will say. But yes, it's a proposal which the government says based on a revision of the tariff setting methodology and also the cost structure. So I believe they must have spoken with the PURC even before they announced this. But we need to be careful, otherwise to get to a stage where people will say government should reduce or increase tariffs, but government doesn't have the power under the law that sets up PURC to determine how much we pay. It's only PURC that determines what we pay at the end of the day.
Some are of the view that the reduction may come from subsidies, and the fear now is legacy debts that the country is now dealing with.
That's a concern to me as well. So we need to see clearly this reduction it has to be occasioned by maybe costs of production, in which case nobody is subsidizing anything. So for example, if we are able to reduce tariffs because we are using more gas rather than crude, or we are producing more electricity from Akosombo than previously, than the tariff was set up in 2015, then I will be comfortable with that. But if anything subsidy, I will be worried because we don't know where it's coming from, especially given that we are already battling the legacy debt. So it should be everybody's concern if the reduction is not being occasioned by reduction in the cost of generation, but it's some manipulation or some action on the part of the government not underpinned by any such cost reduction.
And two teacher unions have issued a 7-day ultimatum demanding government issues a document that will explain why district assemblies will control basic schools from 2018. Reacting to the 2018 budget statement, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers Association, CCT, say any delay after the 7 days could trigger industrial disharmony.
In the budget statement, government indicated that from next year, district assemblies would control basic schools. It again stated that the senior high schools would solely be under the control of the Ghana Education Service. Currently, Cabinet is still discussing a new bill to that effect and would soon be tabled before Parliament. However, barely 48 hours after the pronouncement, two teacher unions have rejected the idea. According to the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, CCT, government should explain whether the district assemblies will be recruiting or paying the teachers.
If they say they want to give it to the district assemblies, does it supposed to mean that it is the district assemblies that are now going to employ the teachers and pay them, said that their salaries will not come from the central pool from controller? Or how is it going to be like? It must be well explained. I know that these things are part of the Local Governance Act. It's also part of the decentralization system that we want to bring into Ghana.
The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, is asking government to explain how transfer grants would be paid if the new policy is rolled out next year. They have therefore given government 7 days to furnish them with the new policy for their input or risk their wrath.
We are writing a letter to the Minister of Education to give us the document that is before Parliament within 7 days for us to study the document and make our input into that document. We will not give support to any policy that we have not made input in. In fact, we take this issue very, very seriously as a union.
In another development, both unions have implored government to find alternative and sustainable sources of funding for the free SHS instead of setting up a voluntary fund.
I'm just looking at how that voluntary fund will be able to yield like 100 million Ghana cedis, 200 million Ghana cedis, 1 billion Ghana cedis. Even our taxes in itself, for a whole year, how much does it yield? For you to talk about how much that voluntary fund will yield for the funding of free SHS.
We will raise hue and cry when the funds are not available in the schools timeously. The absence of funding in the schools will truncate the process of teaching and learning, and which will affect our children whom we superintend over in the various schools.
And that's how we end News at 10. Thank you extremely for making time. I'm Stephen Enti. There's more news at 3f3news.com. On behalf of the crew here, good night.